Hi! Welcome back to Musicians Edition. Practice with me for flute. Today we are finally in the Rubank Intermediate Method. I know you guys have been waiting forever. We're finally here. So welcome my intermediate players. All right, or at least we're working towards intermediate. I'm going to now change my flute. So this is no longer the same flute I was playing with. This is my intermediate flute. If you're wondering if you should be using an intermediate flute too, you can check out the video here. All right, so let's look at page 2 just for a review on things that we should be focusing on and be thinking about, okay? So 1 is good tone. Okay, so we need to make sure we're not playing anything airy or squeaky, and at this point, we really need to be really listening, okay? When you practice, I know we haven't talked about this, so we're going to talk about it now. When you practice and you're thinking of tone, work on long tones. They're boring in my opinion, but essential on getting that good sound. So I like to start with the lower register, and I'll start on normally B natural, okay? And what I'm just listening to, also pull out your tuner, okay, when you're doing these. And you're just gonna hold it and try to just hold it as steady as possible. You're listening, you're watching. Want to make sure it's just consistent. Then I move down to B flat. Move down to A. A flat. So on and so forth. I'm going to work my way all the way down to low C. Now the thing is, if I felt like something wasn't good or solid or not as clear as it could be, there's nothing wrong with even just, like if I played B, and I'm like, that didn't sound as good as it could have been, there's nothing wrong with doing it again. You know, we really want to listen and make sure we're getting the best sound we can get. And then after I feel comfortable with doing the low ones, I then switch to the higher register. Not super high, but I'll start with and then I'll start kind of like adding things a little bit more. So then I'll be going B to B flat in one breath. And then, do B flat to A. And the purpose of changing it up to that is then you're going to make sure that your tone remains good and things remain in tune while changing notes. So take your time, do them, listen, watch. All right, we're gonna start working on some tone improvement stuff. So good tone. Make sure you start throwing that into your own practice sessions. Okay? Intonation. When 2 successive tones of different pitch are produced, it's necessary that each tone be with a tuner relative to the interval being played. So that's like what I had just talked about, where it goes B natural to B flat, holding it out, making sure everything is still in tune. There's good transitions. We don't want any squeaks in between. When you're like adjusting stuff, you want to make sure everything is as smooth as possible. All right, next, tune. The player must develop and train their ear so that a difference of pitch can be distinguished when playing with others. This one's a little harder for us to do here on video because it's just been you and me this whole time. But if you're playing with an ensemble, it's very important to be able to distinguish if you're not in tune with the other players. So normally when you're in an ensemble, everyone will take time to still tune with their tuners, okay? Still important to do that on your own with the ensemble. And then a lot of times, whoever is kind of like, if you have a first chair person or whoever, there's usually one person everybody kind of tunes to, so they'll say concert A. You're gonna listen to that A, you're gonna try to match it. You don't want any weird, you know how like if you're a little bit off, it can do that or hurt the ear a little bit. So make sure you listen and then, you know, either pull out on the head joint, push in. You wanna make sure that it sounds even with the other players. You're supposed to sound like one unit, not a bunch of individual players. Okay? Note values. The player must develop a rhythmic sense as to give proper value to tones as represented by written notes. So here they're just kind of stating that if something's written out for a half note, that we hold it out for 2, we don't cut ourselves short. And that can even go with articulation. So if it's something staccato, don't hold it out for long, you know. So just pay attention to note values. We are going to use the metronome more now that we're in the intermediate book. We want to get a little stricter on our rhythms, so that will help us tremendously. Okay, so next is breathing and phrasing. So I already am aware my breathing and phrasing is not the best. I do need to work more on it. So each is usually dependent on the other, yes. Since the teachers of woodwinds differ on methods of breathing, no special method is advocated, but it is soon becomes evident to all players in order to get good musical phrasing, it is necessary to breathe properly in the proper places of a composition. It will be to the pupil's advantage to spend as much time and effort on this phase of playing and take seriously all suggestions given by the teacher. Well, I guess I need to get stricter on myself too. Let's be honest. All right, I have a tendency to breathe, after every 4, not every measure, but maybe every 2 measures. And a lot of the phrasing is for 4 measures. So throughout this book, we'll take time to work more on our breathing and more on our phrasing. And we'll discuss when we should breathe, because some passages don't have a lot of rests marked in, you know? So it's gonna be like, ooh, I don't know if I can make it through 12 measures without a breath, but we'll determine where the phrasing is, because phrasing is like the way we speak, right? So I wouldn't stop to breathe just to talk and cut my sentences off, like, you know what I mean? So we want to make sure we breathe where it's appropriate. So we'll focus on that more throughout the book too. Okay, expression marks. Expression marks in music are considered just as important as punctuation in prose and poetry. Good phrasing is the performance of music that has been properly punctuated. Expression marks put character into a mass of notes, and if properly observed, will produce satisfying musical effects. So the breath mark is, if there's a breath mark, a lot of times that is an expression mark. It can show intensity, things like that. That can also go along with a lot of articulations too. Okay, relaxation and proper position of body and hands. Now that we're getting into the intermediate series, we need to make sure that we do have proper hand positions and that we are relaxed, okay? Things are gonna get a little faster and more intense, and we wanna make sure that our fingers are able to move easily and quickly and not painfully. So now that I've switched to my intermediate flute, I have the inline flute. I don't like it, but it is what it is, and for some reason, I'm attached to this flute. Whatever, it is what it is. But since it does have a different feel than the student flute, I like to use a thumb port. Okay, so I'm just gonna put my thumb port on. And if you're interested in a thumb port, the Flute Center of New York has them. And if you use the code Reesa, you can get a few extra perks. You can also just get these bad boys now on Amazon. I have a link in the description below for these ones. They're just cheap, like rubber silicone ones. They're nothing professional, nothing crazy. They just pop right on here. That's all I need. I don't need anything fancy. Okay, so this just helps me hold my flute better because I have a tendency still to do this. And with this flute, my hands will hurt after a while because I tense up. That helps me relax and keep things
balanced. Okay, next, sufficient time for practice. Since different pupils require different types and lengths of practice periods, the objective that every pupil should establish is, I will master the assigned task, whether it takes half or 2 hours. The accomplishment of the task is far more important than the time that it consumes. So, like I've said in all our previous videos, you are in charge. That means of anything. So, we're just learning through these videos on your own time. It's perfect, it's great. Think of your own goals in this case, okay? So if you want to, follow this book straight with me, practice where you're comfortable, where you're getting it. Some people, they take a little longer, need a little more time, so they might need longer. Nothing's crazy, so you're in charge of your practice time. Though I still do recommend you at least try to practice every day. If you can't, I understand that too. The more practice you get, the faster you progress, the more you can do. But you already know that. So you still have to set your own time for practicing. Okay, proper care of the instrument. Carelessness in the handling of an instrument is the most prevalent handicap to the progress of young players. Well, most of you are not young players, but we do need to pay attention to the care. We need to make sure that we are still brushing our teeth before we play. If you eat, rinsing your mouth out with water after the fact, making sure you clean the inside of your flute every time we play. It gets gross in there. Also, you don't want to be changing pads. And then just make sure you give a quick wipe down with the polishing cloth before you pack your flute. Should be good to go. And remember, avoid the pad savers. If you don't know what a pad saver is, looks like this. These are known as pad savers. They don't save your pads at all. Trash them, okay? Don't use those. All right, and lastly, we have mental attitude of teacher and pupil. Well, hard for me to go off that since we are here through video, but I'm assuming we have a good relationship. I always try to keep things positive, upbeat. I understand that sometimes things get a little frustrating. That's why I like to remind you that you can take time to slow it down, work it note by note, work on rhythms later, whatever you need to do. I really want to make sure that you have fun playing your flute, and I want to make sure that you continue to have fun, even as things get harder. Okay, now that we got all of that out of the way, let's take a look at page 3, review lesson. Okay, so this is just they want to make sure your instrument is in good mechanical condition. Okay, they're talking springs, pads, and keys. I can't check that for you since I am not with you, but you can kind of use your ears to hear what's going on. And if you're unsure of any leaks, a good way to do that is just play low C. I kind of struggle with low C on this flute. All right, if you get low C out nice and crystal clear for the most part, you're pretty good, all right? Because if there were leaks, you'd really struggle to get it out. It would be like, you would struggle to get it out. But if you can play a low C, for the most part, you're good there, okay? But even then, you should still take your flute in at least once a year for just maintenance things. They'll make sure your cork is good. They'll check the pads, make sure nothing's sticking, nothing's ripped. They'll make sure you're good. So it's good to take it in at least once a year. Okay, we're gonna let's see, what else do they want us to look at? Rhythms in this lesson are fundamental, and it is expected that the player will have self-sufficient experience of the instrument to be able to read in succeeding sections at sight. So they're talking about sight reading. You should be able to sight read this, which I agree, we probably should. There's nothing complicated in here. So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll just work on this as sight reading. Okay, 3, rests are just as important as notes, and therefore it is important to have a sound rhythmic conception in order to play well at sight. Yes, the rests are just as important. It makes up the whole entire bar or measure, and we need to make sure everything is at its value. Okay, and 4, attention should be given to embouchure at this time. So pay attention to that, all right? So that a good tone is produced at all times. Any variation in the embouchure that produces good results may be discovered by both the teacher and pupil. Well, I'm not going to be able to tell you since I'm not there, but make sure you really use your ear, okay? And when you're practicing, maybe take a little time in the mirror to look at your embouchure and try some new things. So something that's pretty big that I had discovered, well, me and when I was taking lessons, my teacher and I, was that this flute, I had to change my embouchure up a little bit between my student flute. This one I needed to relax my bottom lip a little bit more and then pull my upper lip out a little bit more. So like my student flute played pretty well if I have a little bit of a tighter embouchure. This one I have to like pull this out to get a better sound. So take time to experiment to see if you can get a better sound. You want to be at your absolute best now. Okay, so this lesson is kind of about sight reading, so that's what we're gonna do. That means we're gonna go through these one time, okay? So, I feel like I've prepared us for sight reading for the most part, because things we look at, key signature, time signature, if there's anything out of the ordinary like accidentals, and looking for dynamics. Okay, every time we've played, I've asked those questions, and I've asked them because I wanted us to make sure we look ahead before we do that. So I'm not gonna cover these things, okay? We're gonna just pretend like we really are just sight reading this together, okay? So we're not gonna talk about it. We're gonna sight read from beginning to end. Of course, I'll stop and say exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3. And then we're gonna go back, and then we're gonna just kind of go over it, okay? Just real quick, because this is pretty easy. This is stuff that was basically from the last book. So if you completed the last book, you should be fine here. Okay, so we are going to sight read with the metronome though. So we make sure all our beats and stuff are good. I will let you know what we are doing for beats per minute. I feel like 80 seems like a good place to just be for sight reading. Okay, so let's start with exercise 1, okay? I will still give us the count off. Ready? You can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. Hopefully you did pretty good, but I have faith that you did. All right, let's go ahead and do number 2. All right, ready? We're gonna keep this at 80 throughout. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. Hopefully you got that pretty well too. All right, let's try number 3. Ready? Take a moment to look ahead. And let's get ready to play. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. Hanging in there still? Great, we're gonna just sight read 2 more exercises and then we'll go back and go over them. Okay, number 4, ready? I'll give you a moment to look ahead. All right, let's play, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Great, okay. Last sight reading, 5. Take a moment to look ahead. All right, let's get ready to play. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. That wasn't too bad, right? Great. Okay, so I know with sight reading pieces, you're supposed to kind of just read through it and move on, but I'm big on mastering things, improving them, because you never know. Okay, so the more practice, the better, right? So let's go back to exercise 1, okay? So now we can look at it together, make sure you saw what I saw. What did we have going on in our key signature? We had no sharps, no flats. That is what it was for every exercise. It was all in the key of C. So that made it easier, right? Now our time signature, what was that? They were all common time, 4/4. So that made it easy too. Okay, there wasn't much dynamic markings. I only saw the one on exercise 1 for mezzo forte, so I pretty much just played at a comfortable level the whole way through. Now I did pay attention to articulation, did you? There are some slurs in all the pieces. Okay, so looking at exercise 1, the first measure is all tonguing, ta, ta. Then we slur, ta, rest, right? Ta, 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 rest, okay? And that's all it was when it came to the tonguing and the slurring, okay? We had the rests. We did have a breath mark in the middle of the measure. Sometimes those can get a little tricky because we have to breathe in a little quicker than like the quarter rests, right? It's just real quick. I mean, don't breathe like that, but you know, exaggerate it so you can hear it and see it. So let's play this again at 80, okay? And now that we know what we've talked about, key signature, time signature, slurs, tongues, breath marks, we can improve, all right? So let's do it again. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. straining things. They're not as strong as they could be. The intermediate flute is a little harder to play, but you know, we'll warm up with you guys. Okay, next, what we're gonna do, let's add some expression in. So now I want you to add in those vibratos. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. So just take time to master it and practice a little bit. All right, let's take a look at exercise 2 now, okay? There's still, once again, a couple slurs in there. Ta, rest. Ta, 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 rest. Ta, rest. Ta, 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 rest. Okay, so that's all that where the slurs are, is just that section. But here you just need to pay attention to your rests, because they do make up the piece, they make up the amount of time we need, okay? So just pay attention to the rests, especially when there's the 2 rests together, but there's the measure bar. Okay, so just remember it's 4, 1, play, play, rest, play, rest. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and play this again? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. All right, this time let's add some expression in, so add in some vibrato. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. You can also take a little time to just play around with some dynamics of how you feel. So maybe you feel this section should be loud, this section should be soft, there should be a crescendo here. Play around with some dynamics too. Make it your own. All right, but for now, let's move on to exercise 3. Okay, once again, we do have just those couple slurs, and it looks like it's pretty well the same slurs. Oh yeah, it is, like throughout. It's the same measures with the same notes. So pay attention to that. And then here we just have a little bit more of a combo between the half notes, quarter notes, and a couple quarter rests in there. So just make sure we play everything to value. All right, so let's play it again. Ready? Exercise 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. make sure you're still listening to your tone and tuning, okay? I had one D that wasn't as strong as it could have been. So, just things to pay attention to. This time, let's make it expressive, add your vibrato in. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. All right, let's look at number 4. We have a little bit more rhythm action going on. We got some 8th notes in there. Most of this is still tonguing. We have 1 measure of the slur, measure 2. Okay, so this has a little bit more. We do have a couple breath marks in this one as well. So if you look at line 2, measure 2, you'll see a breath mark right there in almost the middle. It's right before beat 4. We have a breath mark. And then at measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, line 2, we have one right before those 8th notes. All right, so you want to make sure you do take a breath because it's marked in. They want the breath. Take the breath, even if you don't need to. Okay, so let's play this one again, exercise 4. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. I hope you took the breaths where they were marked in. Very important there. Okay, this time let's add our vibratos. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. All right. Let's look at exercise 5 now. We have the 2 measures with the slurs in it, just like we did with all the previous ones. This one gets some, not really tricky in my book, but just to be cognizant of the double rests together. Ta, rest, rest, ta, 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 rest, ta, rest, rest, ta, 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 rest, ta, rest, rest, ta, 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 rest, rest, ta, ta, rest, ta, rest, ta. Right? So we just need to be a little more cognizant of the rests on this one. All right, let's go ahead and play it. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. so yes, just pay attention to your rest on this one. This time, I want you to do the vibrato. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent job. All right, so just a quick review we had today. All things that we need to pay attention though. All right, so if you have any comments, questions, concerns, let me know in the comments. Thanks for joining, and until next time.